Wait, okay. All right. We are live. Hello everyone. Dr. Levinton here with Dr. Mary Leung. So excited. We're here. This is a second this is the second time she's here with us. Today we're going to be talking about a practical guide on balancing parenthood and work. As always, I'm Dr. Levinton, help people live long and well because we believe the quality of life is just as important as the quantity of life. If you are watching live, hashtag live. If you're watching replay, hashtag replay. Dr. Long, thank you so much for coming. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me tonight.
All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, for those who are watching, please, if you know someone who could benefit from this, please share with them, invite them, tag them, and we'll go on from there. Okay, we will be answering questions live, so get your questions ready as well, so we can go ahead. All right. Now, that being said, Dr. Lung, it's good to see you again. Can you kindly introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you do the things that you do?
Yeah. So I'm Mary Leung. I'm a full-time hematologist oncologist, and I am also a life coach for physicians who are stressed, overwhelmed, burned out, so that I can, help them to feel better, to leave work on time, to rediscover joy in life and medicine again. So why I chose this? It's actually, well, I did not born this way, or I did not enter medicine this way. So what happened was, I just wanted to help people to be a physician. And after all the training, I thought I was finally there being an attending, and only to find myself not really able to focus on helping people, but I was just drowning in the long hours of work with, after seeing the patients, I was doing all the charts and making all the phone calls. So I ended up having to spend an extra 3 to 4 hours every day, to do all those, type of work. And a lot of times it was also kind of cut into my weekends to do it. And I was very miserable and really lost all the joy and not able to connect with the patients. So what happened was during the pandemic, I was only seeing a third of my patients, and I had the taste of going home on time and really being able to spend time with my family, with my kids, and that was wonderful. So then I thought, what if I could do it again when when I was going back to full time working, seeing, I mean, the same number of patients as I was seeing, the 20 some patients that I used to see. So then during that time, I had time to explore other things. So I stumbled upon something called life coaching. So I was like, I would do anything to feel better. So I joined a physician, coaching program for physicians by physicians, and I learned so much, and that changed my life. And so the short story was that I was working with my coach, was able to manage how I was, thinking about things and manage my mind. And within 3 months, I was able to, while I was back to seeing the 20 some patients, I was able to go home by 5:30 with all my work done, as opposed to after 7, still with work unfinished. And so I thought, and at that time I also joined a certification program for life coaching, only to learn more about life coaching itself, so for my own benefit. And then so I thought, well, now that I have this free time, how about I help other physicians to do the same? Because so
Okay.
many of us are really drowning in this routine, and we didn't sign up for, working all these hours outside of seeing patients to do all this work. So that's how I started to be a life coach for physicians.
All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, for those of you who are watching, you do not have to be a physician to benefit from this. We're talking about balancing parenthood and work. So,
Yeah.
Doc, my first question, because we're talking about trying to play a balancing act, because as you agree, it almost seems like there's never it is always something to do. All right. So it can be overwhelming, but what are some of the biggest challenges people face or parents face when they're trying to manage both? So we can start from there.
Yes, I think the biggest thing is, and that was me too. it's the belief that we have to do it all. I think that is like, oh, I have to be here, I have to be there, I have to be present for, all everything about my kids. And I think, that belief, kind of leads to the guilt that you build up, if you're not able to do all those things. Like, say, for example, if you're working overtime or long hours, then you may not be able to be present in every single soccer game, and you may feel guilty about that. And the other thing, it's kind of like you're comparing with other parents. It's like, oh,
Arthritis.
that's so and so's mom is able to do this because she's not working. She is a stay-at-home mom, and then meanwhile, me, I have to, I'm working and I'm not able to do that. So you're kind of like comparing, with other people. And I think, sometimes it's also how you define the what the balance is, between work and life outside of work, meaning parenthood, and, what does that mean? Is it like 50-50, or is it, 30-70, whatever? Sometimes it's like you're kind of stuck with that concept of what it means by balancing it. And I think the thing is that there's really no set definition. It's really what you're comfortable with. Sometimes, or some days, it could be more with the parenthood, and some days you may want to work more. And it's a flexible thing, and it's actually how you define it, what you're comfortable with. And I think also the important thing is to allow yourself to say that I can be a good parent and a good worker, and I don't have to do it all. It's okay. I'm just doing my best. So I think, those are kind of like the things that, the challenges that parents face.
I like how you mentioned that sometimes we have a belief that we got to do it all. And, there's the guilt thing you mentioned. So for the parent who wants to be present, but has to balance work hours and is tired, are there are there practical tips on how to manage this? Okay, so I have a parent who's like, oh, my kids want to play soccer, my kid wants to play basketball. I don't want to miss out on the chance for them to join the NBA and to be a superstar, but I got to work this night shift. I'm exhausted. My husband and I have different work shifts. So that's a scenario. And I see that played over and over again. And they're saying that, but my kids have to play. So I want to be a present. You say you don't have to do it all. In
Mhm.
that case, any suggestions on how to balance with the pressures from the kid and the husband and from the work?
Yes. So I think the first thing is to prioritize. You figure out what is the most important thing for you. Like, maybe for that day, that particular day, maybe that game, that soccer game, baseball game, whatever game, or sports that the kid is playing, that maybe it's the most important thing for you. And then you figure out how to, like, say, of course, you want to be doing your best to be efficient at work, so you're not bringing work home, or at least not bringing a lot of work home. And then you figure out the timing wise, like, say, of course you have to take into account of the traveling time too, like the commuting time. And I think that when you plan ahead, especially that, I would just say that it's helpful for everybody to kind of have a calendar that is by the hour. So you plan it kind of, if you know that you're at work from, say, 8 to 4, something like that, or 8 to 5, then that you're there. And then afterwards, it's like, you plan some leeway time that is like kind of blank, in case some surprising thing happens. And then you plan, okay, this is a time that I want to spend with my kid, and this is the time that I'll do housework, kind of like, so you set things that it's realistic in the time frame, and it's by the hour, so that, okay, this is what I can do. And that will also minimize you from over scheduling yourself, because you gotta, of course, every day it's kind of like you're fine tweaking things, and it's okay not to be perfect the first time, because you know what, we're human beings, we're not perfect. And we always say even iPhones is the first version is not the perfect one, it's just the best one yet.
At
And
that
then
time.
now it's like what, the 16, it's out, right? So I think that's important. The second thing is to set boundaries. Like say for example at work, if you're a good worker, your boss or whoever, they may actually invite you or offer you to do more work just because you're great, you're efficient and all. But it's kind of not fair, but it happens because you're reliable and all. So sometimes it's like you just have to learn to say no, especially if it's extra work outside of your described job duties. So and no, sometimes you don't have to explain why it's a no. You just have to say no, nice but firm about it.
That's whew, whew. Ah, okay. Let's pause because you've said some very very powerful things. You talked about planning ahead. I have to say, and I want to encourage everyone who's watching. Some people say I'm not a planner. I don't do things. I like to be spontaneous. But I have found that since I started doing this maybe 2 years, a year and a half ago, where I planned the week on a Sunday, oh my goodness, it saved me so much time ahead. I'm able to put things. So really important what Dr. Leung is saying here. It could be in communication if you don't want to document it down, but at least you and your spouse have a plan for the week. Really important. Now you talked about setting boundaries. That can be a tough one, especially when you want to be a good worker. So for someone who's watching, who's like, well, or who's the person who, you run a practice, you want someone, or you run a business, you want your team members to work really hard.
Hmm.
Uh, and the person, I want you to speak to the person on tips or maybe ways that they can encourage work-life balance for their workers. And then for that person who's a hard worker who says, I feel like if I don't do that, I'm letting my job down, or I'm feeling guilty. I feel like, you know, that I'm not serving my company the way I should. What would you say to them, both sides, as far as the boundaries?
Yeah, so I think that to be, the boss or the employer, I think it's very important to be mindful of the well-being of your employees, of the workers, of the staff, because you know what, sometimes you may unknowingly give them extra work more than they can handle. So it's kind of, I think communication is so important to kind of also talk to the person, and also to kind of have a feel of the unspoken language, to see, hey, are they really like just saying it because they're afraid to say no because you have that pressure from the superior, or are they really okay to handle it? So I think just to be mindful, and just have an open discussion of, hey, is that something that you can handle? And also respect the staff member. If the person say that, hey, it's going to be, it's too much for me to handle, I won't be doing a good job if I do this, and it's like, okay, we'll figure something out. I think for the person who is put on the work, then I would say same thing. It's like, just gauge yourself. Yes, of course you're capable, you're amazing. And at the same time, it's the, we all have limits, and we got to take care of ourselves first, because if we don't care about ourselves, we can't give the best that we can for other people. And that is so important, not just in patient care, but in all the fields. So I think that of course sometimes it's like you have a good ethic, you're hardworking. At the same time, it's like, okay, am I overstretching myself? Am I sacrificing something by taking on an extra job? And if that's too much for you, and that's kind of against your values, I would just say that no. And you may want to explain that, hey, I don't think I can do a good job by doing this at this time.
Awesome. I like that. I think you answered my next question about the advice for parents, maybe in a way you touched on it, but let's speak more on this. What advice do we have for parents who feel guilty about not being able to give 100% to both their job and their children? I know we touched on it a little bit, specifically for the parents, like, oh man, I want to do both. I want to be perfect in all things, and I don't have time for self care. What would you advise, Doc?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to address the 100 giving 100%. What does that even mean, right? So I think for each person that's different. I think it's like I would define as giving 100%, meaning that you're doing your best in both worlds,
Mm,
and it doesn't mean that it's perfect, and that is okay.
mm,
Allow yourself not to be perfect. I mean,
right.
you're doing your best doesn't mean that you're perfect, because human beings are not perfect beings, and that is okay. And that meaning that you're giving yourself grace to say that I'm doing my best, and from today's experience or the other day, this is what I learned, and the next time or the next day I'll just do it a little bit differently to be better. So I think every opportunity, every experience, it's a learning and growing experience, and we learn from it. And I think for me, it's like, so I learned from my experience that working all these long hours did not work for me, because I was just going through the motions. It was miserable. I was, feeling frustrated. I felt stuck and all. And so I was like, okay, so I asked myself, and you can ask yourself too, it's like, what can I do about it? So be curious and open-minded, about it, and explore what you can do differently. So for me, it's like, okay, I know that it was the charting thing, patient charts, that was the bane of my existence. So I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do about it. So I did, so I did something about it, and I cut down my work time, and I was more efficient, and I saved 10 plus hours a week, and that was wonderful. So I think that, if you look into it, like in terms of your work, you can probably be more efficient and go home sooner. And of course, I understand that, there are people who are like working set hours, and they can't go home early or anything like that. And then you can juggle and think about, okay, all right, so maybe like there are projects that I can do that I can finish faster, and maybe I can have some free time, at work, and do some things related to the kids, or related to home, something like that. And I think for in terms of being 100% quote unquote present with the with the kids, it's that, it doesn't mean that you have to do everything from morning till evening. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to cook for them all the time, do their laundry and everything. Maybe you just do some, certain days. It's like, for example, I work my hours. I mean, even though I'm going home by 5, I'm coaching, I'm doing all different things, which, it's I find very fulfilling. And I don't cook for my kids all the time. I actually barely cook for them. Sometimes I do it over the weekend, and I'm okay with it, because I'm like, hey, you know what? And that you probably, will touch on a little bit more. It's because I'm very grateful to have a husband who helps out, and I think that is okay. It's like when I was growing up, my parents, they were both working parents, and they didn't have time. And I grew up in Hong Kong, so the trend was actually having helpers, to help us. So they cook, they send us to activities and all, and that's okay. And you get to choose and decide what you like to do. And maybe certain days you cook, certain days you do the laundry. You don't have to do them all on the same day.
You share so many powerful tips here, and I loved how you said you don't have to do all the things from morning to night. Sometimes being with them is just what they need.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tell my clients, those who have younger kids who all read to me, I say, you know what, you can stay on the bed and have your kid cuddle with you and say, you read to mommy, right?
Yeah.
And that's quality time. Um, and there's something we talked about or growing up that was talked about a lot, the virtuous woman in Proverbs 31. She could do everything. She did this, she did this. But if you look really closely at the description of a Proverbs 31st woman, she had help.
Mm-hmm.
She had people helping her. She didn't do everything
Yeah.
by herself. So that was a very, very big, very, very big eye opener for me. Please ask for help. You don't have to do everything
Yes.
at the time. Ask for help and receive the help. Please receive the help.
It's
Um,
okay to receive help.
I concur. And that segues into my next question. You talked about kids. How can parents involve their children in household responsibilities to lighten their own load and teach valuable life skills? Doc?
Yes. So I think, part of being, you know, efficient, it's actually delegation, be it at work and at home. So for the kids, is I think first is, you show that it's actually something kind of fun to do. You know, I think that if you show that it's something useful, something fun, and it's like, hey, come, help me do this. Let me teach you how to do this. And especially young kids, they love to learn everything, and you're their example, so they will learn whatever you teach them, right? I mean, that's how they learn the language to begin with. So it's just make it fun. And also, like, I think they like to have the responsibility of being in charge of something. They'll make them in charge of something. It's kind of fun, especially for little kids. I think, like, so say, I think for me, it's like, hey, do you want to learn how to wash the vegetables, or let's bake together, like little things like that. And do laundry. I'm like, I have the concept of see one, do one, teach one. That's
That's
from
right.
being doctoring. So
Yep.
so I'm like, okay, this is the laundry, this is the machine, this is the button you push, and also, so now, my kids are older now, they're like teenagers, but when they're younger, it's like, it's kind of fun, and now it's like, I'm so grateful when I ask them to do it. Sometimes they're like, they may have a little delay, but they, in the end, they do it. And so that definitely lightens my load of, even like doing simple cooking, or doing the laundry, so a little, little things add up to be a lot of things.
I agree. Now, I'm going to address the common hiccup I see, especially in conversation with patients. So they're
Yeah.
like, when the kids help you, it's a little messier. Let's agree, right? It's a little messier. People are a little particular. They want their house to be clean all the time. For the mom who's a little bit like, I'm very particular, and so she doesn't want to release the release some of the stress by teaching the kids. Do you have any words of advice on that, Doc?
Yeah, I would just say this along the lines of the perfectionism, and because you want, I guess the focus is to have the kids learn the life skill, to be more independent, to be able to do it themselves. So it's okay that, the first come around or whatever, it's not perfect. And then, if it's really something that you think that they can improve on, you can, give them really constructive criticism, and maybe say in a nice way, depending on their age, right? so
Right.
so so you use different language just depending on if it's a 5-year-old versus a 15-year-old. But still in a positive way, to say that, hey, it's great that you did that, and this is the way that you can actually do it better next time. So I think, because you want to ultimately have the kid learn the skill as, become as good as you are, or even better.
Okay.
So I think, if the first time didn't get that mark, it's okay.
That's right. The focus. What's the focus of the activity? All right. So as we wrap, this has been very good. I'm taking tips myself. So thank you so much, Dr. Long. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
What are some practical tips for managing stress and preventing burnout when balancing this demanding role? So someone's watching here who's like, okay, doc, I get it. I get more help. I'll delegate. I have to teach my kids. I don't
Yeah.
have to, I got to give my best, not put myself under the pressure of 100%. But what are tips for managing stress and preventing burnout as you're balancing it all?
Yeah. So stress, so that's a very important concept, is that, if you feel stress, take a step back and look at, what is causing you to feel the stress. It's actually like what you're thinking that
Mm,
is causing you to have the stress. So, you have your situation, you have, in the situation that you're in itself is neutral. It's really when you put an opinion to it that makes it alive or makes it mean something to you. So you may think that, oh, this is too much for me to handle, therefore you feel stressed, but if you think that, oh, maybe actually I'm capable, it's manageable, and you don't you may feel more empowered to do things. So I think one of the things is really to figure out how your thinking is affecting your feeling and the stress. So it's like you can have two people with the same workload, and because they're thinking of the situation differently, they have very different feelings. So one may feel stressed, one may feel actually I'm capable, I can do it. So I think that's really be mindful of what you're thinking is so important. Second is remember that we have to take care of ourselves first. I think oftentimes it's like we're so giving. We always want to help other people. We forget about ourselves. We put ourselves last, or we kind of ignore this. Like, what are you talking about? We don't need to take care of ourselves. But it's really like, if you don't take care of ourselves, we can get sick. And when we're sick, we can do anything. We're not of any help to anyone else, and people may have to actually help us and be more causing more trouble potentially. So I think it's so important to take care of ourselves physically and mentally. So I think that is so important. And how do we do that? It's really remember to also take breaks throughout the day, even a couple minutes time, like especially if you feel like you're overwhelmed, just take a step back and take some deep breaths, or even just stop what you're doing and walk outside, or just do something different. Just have your mind take a break, because that way you'll be when you come back to it, you'll be like, oh, actually I can do it do it differently, or I can approach it another way. The other thing we talked about earlier on, it's really just to give yourself grace, and just be nice to yourself, be
Mhm.
kind to yourself, and how you talk to yourself. Just notice how you talk to yourself, because sometimes we're so mean to ourselves that we don't realize that, oh, I'll never talk like this to someone else. So I think that is so important. And of course, yes, ask for help. And even, like, say if you have trouble managing your mind, and you feel stressed, and you're like, really, there's no way that I can not feel stressed, ask someone to help you.
I like it. I like it. Ask someone for help. Take the help. Rest. Be kind to yourself. Take your own advice. What would you say to yourself if you were in your shoes? Like, what would you say to you?
Yeah.
All right, Doc. This was really good. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, as we wrap up, I have someone here who's watching who's like, "Yeah, Doc, I hear you, but you don't know what it's like. I have 3 kids under 2. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of chaos. I have to work, and it's just too much to do, and I feel Any words of encouragement, even in this season, on how to balance? I know we said a lot, but any words, final words of encouragement before we wrap up to that person who's watching, who's like, I don't know, Doc.
Yeah, I'll say that just, sit down, in a quiet place and just think about it. It's like, okay, all right, I'm doing the best that I can. Um, do I need to ask for help? Who can I ask for help? If you have a partner, spouse, can we just talk about this and kind of like delegate or divide and conquer type of thing? Do we have in-laws, parents, just enlist, or even sometimes I know a lot of parents like to do kind of carpool, for sports, like something like that. So those are things that you can think about. And I think that always, if you're feeling so strongly, about being stressed and overwhelmed, talk to someone, even at least talk to a friend, talk to another parent, talk to someone who in a similar situation, or who was in a similar situation. It's like, okay, how did you do it? How did you, quote unquote, do it all, when actually it's like, probably it's combination of delegation and cooperation, and all these different things. And I would just say that, don't jump to saying that, oh, I need to work part-time. Just think about, hey, what can we do in this season, in this situation, before I think about changing my job altogether and or quitting my job altogether.
Mm.
And remember, because your kids are growing every day, so it's like a 5-year-old. It's not going to be the same demands as a 15-year-old. So so eventually they will grow.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that. I remember when I was younger, one day I was doing dishes and I started crying because I'm a perfectionist. I like to do everything and it's clean when I do it. And my husband was like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I can't do this for 30 years." He said, "They grow up." And I'm like, "Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, we got to ask for help. This season will not last always. Delegate and talk to people who have gone ahead of you. You'll be surprised some of the tips that they share with you that you didn't see that was obvious during that.
Yeah.
Season. So that was powerful, Dr. Long. I appreciate you. Now, for those who are watching, who are like, I like this doctor, Dr. Mary Long. Where can I find her? How can I work with her? And for physicians who are watching, who are like, you know what, I want to talk to her about that work-life balance. Doc, where can people find you?
Yes, so I have my own website, and my company is Shining with Gratitude MD. So the website is www.shiningwithgratitudemd.com, and I do write a blog post twice a week, and there's also you can get free guide to combat burnout. It's also on the website, and my email is shiningwithgratitudemd@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, Mary Leung, and LinkedIn, Mary Leung MD.
I love it. Shining with gratitude. I
Because I'm
like
full
that
of
name.
gratitude.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Shining with gratitude. That's a powerful name. Thank you so much, Doc, for sharing this evening with us. We appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for sharing powerful tips that will help people balance all the things. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And thank you all for watching. Those of you who watch live, those of you who are going to watch replay, I appreciate the feedback. Please share this with those who could find this useful. And if it's one or two things you're going to practice based on this, please go ahead. Your virtual fist pumps and high fives as you do the things. All right. And as always, if you or anyone you know is looking for an awesome, thorough, and compassionate family physician who we have conversations in the office and outside the office to help you live long and well, I am she. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.